Welcome to our Photoshop Elements question and answer webinar. I've invited all of you here today just to help you with any photo editing problems you might be having, and to also show you how I go about editing some of these common photos. Now, a lot of you will have picked up the Mother's Little Helper class as part of the Ultimate Bundle that was last month, and I hope you're enjoying the class. So this webinar is to go with that class. And so if you'd like to learn more about it, you can go to Digital Scrapbooking HQ/Mother's Helper. And let's get started. So I'm going to be working in Photoshop Elements. Now, I've had a couple of photos sent through to me from a number of the people in the Digital Scrapbooking HQ community. So I'm going to start with this one from Shell Beebe. And this is a photo that she sent to me of some members of her family, and just to see what I could do with it. Now, the great thing is with these older vintage photos that there's a lot of technology that can really help you fix them. So let's have a look at this. If we go into the guided edit mode in Photoshop Elements, is the Restore Old Photos under Special Edits. So this is our old photograph. And then it gives you basically a built-in tutorial of what to do first. So the first thing we want to do is crop. In this case, we don't need to crop because the photo is already cropped pretty nicely. And then we're going to do the spot healing tool for small spots and tears. So let's zoom in here and see what we've got. We mostly just have this huge kind of fold, and there's really not many spots that I'd even worry about. I mean, you could go through and fix a few bits here and there, but I think this photo doesn't really need much spot work on it. So what we're going to use first is the healing brush tool to repair bigger tears and scratches. So this is pretty simple. I'm just going to get my mouse, and I'm going to use the left and right bracket keys to make the cursor big enough. And I'm going to copy the bricks from this area over here. So let's click on, hold down Alt it says, and then click to repair that. So it's going to be a bit of a slow process building up. And in this case, it looks like, if you can see here, the part I'm editing is just this rip here, and that's where the bricks, it's a windowsill, so I can't really copy from down here. So I think I might have to do a different strategy with that one. But let's just repair this brickwork here. So I'm just working on that there. That brick didn't quite line up. Oh well, luckily we can just revert the image. So we'll have to try that again. I might have to do some more advanced editing on this big rip. But on the smaller rip up here, what I can do is just use the spot healing tool. And as you can see, that's pretty quick and it's doing a great job. So there we go, we'll just get rid of that tear. And this one over here. And if you want to, you can always press Control plus or Command plus to zoom in. In this case, you've also got your hand to move around your photo, or the zoom tool here. But we don't want to zoom in that far. So let's just keep going with the spot healing here, trying to fix up this tear. Now I'm not doing big brush strokes, I'm just doing little dots in each section, so that Photoshop Elements knows, okay, that's part of the brick, this is part of her hair. brick, all the brick part can be done together. Now that's looking pretty good. Now we've got this other one, which is a clone stamp tool, which I think we might use to try and fix up our brick issue. So this shows the brick. There we go. So I've added the brick there pretty easily, but it's not perfectly lined up. So I guess it depends how fussy you are. So we've worked through most of these options in the first half, and let's scroll down to see what else we can do with this old photo. We can remove dust. The photo itself doesn't really have a lot of dust, so that's really quite good. There's just a couple of pieces of dust which we can remove, but it's mostly this fold here. So we won't do that, we won't do the blur, so everything is looking pretty good here. We might look at auto levels and see what that does. So let's go to the view menu and do before and after and see how that's looking. It's pretty good. And then we could convert it to black and white if we wanted, but in this case I'm just going to leave it at sepia. And then we have the option to increase the sharpness. Again, I don't think we need to do that on this one. So as you can see, this whole restore old photo has a big variety of options you can choose from to work on your photo. I'm not using every single one of them on this photo, so we'll click next. We're going to save it as a Photoshop document so we can go back and edit it later. Now, after we've saved it as, we have the option to continue editing in quick or expert mode or share it on Facebook, Flickr, etc. So let's click expert mode. I'm going to show you a quick way of how we can fix this tear in the photo. Select an area of brick and go to layer via copy, Control J or Command J. It's so funny, I know the shortcuts because I use them so much, but I don't necessarily know where the menu items are to show you. So here I've just got a selection of bricks here. I'm going to line this brickwork up as best I can with the mortar behind. I'm going to click to add a layer mask. Then I'm going to use my black brush, my brush tool with black selected. Make sure I have my mask selected, and then I'm just going to erase any parts of this brick that I don't need and just leave what I do need, which is this little bit here. I'm going to do the same with the windowsill here. I'm going to get a selection of the windowsill that's still good. Then I'm going to press Command or Control J to duplicate the windowsill here and Alt move that across. So now the beautiful thing is I can actually merge all the layers to create a new layer, which is Command Shift E or Control Shift E, which is merge visible. So now I've merged visible, and then I'm going to use this really fun spot healing brush again to get rid of this white spot here. Look at that. And then just going to do some repair work on where those bits I've copied don't look so good. So that's probably going to bring me to the end of that edit. So let's have a look. So here is the original photo, and this is my edited version. I'm pretty happy with how that looks. That big white hair is gone and the fold marks are all gone. And that just took me maybe 10 minutes. Using the guided edit mode, restore old photo. It's really good. So the next photograph I received to edit was this one from Melissa. Photos from, I assume, a ball, a school ball, I guess, or maybe, I guess you guys call it a prom. And we're going to do some editing. Now the background is very blown out and the foreground was a bit too light. Now this photo is super slow resolution. So the first thing I'm going to do is use the magic wand to select the girls. This quick selection tool actually might be the best option. So we've got the girls roughly selected, and then to remove these parts of the background, I'm just going to use my Alt key or Option key on the Mac to just remove the parts of the background, because Melissa wanted me to just brighten up the girls' faces here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new adjustment layer in the layers panel. Oops. So we're going to go to layers, adjustment layer and levels, or you can go to the menu here and do new adjustment layer, levels. Now I used the selection to create a clipping mask, so I'll show you that again. So I've got my selection, and then I just go to layer, new adjustment layer, levels, and then I click use previous layer to create clipping mask. So now any options I make in this, changes I make, only affect the selected area of the girls. So what we want to do is make it all a bit lighter. So we're just going to move the white point up. And the great thing is you don't need to know the theory necessarily about this. You can just play with these sliders until you're happy with how it looks. So I'm just going to select something that should be white, so this highlight on her dress. There we go, made a big difference. Now I'm going to adjust the grey point to get it looking a bit more realistic. So, and that's all I really need to do in this photo. So that was pretty quick and simple, wasn't it? Before, after. It's a lot brighter now. Now, of course, this is a very low resolution image, so you can see it's quite jaggy at the edges, but not to worry, that's exactly how you do it yourself. So again, File, Save As a Photoshop document. Okay, so this next photo from Joe Henry is another one which is a family history from 1902. So it looks like we need some help with the contrast here. The actual image itself looks pretty good. It is a small low resolution image, but I wouldn't even worry about this kind of background dirt. You're probably just wanting to see more detail in the faces. So let's, instead of going to the guided edit, I'm going to do a different method. So I'm going to duplicate the entire photo, Control J or Command J on the Mac, twice. And I'll do screen and overlay. So this first layer is screen, which multiplies the pixel data. So it's probably a bit difficult to explain. I learnt this technique from Jessica Sprague. What I'll do is I'll send out an email to you all with the resources from this class. So this is increasing the contrast. So I'm just going to move that. So that technique is okay, but it hasn't really got me the results I want. So let's try another one. Let's try our levels adjustment. So in this case, our whites are pretty much too white, so we can't see any detail. So what we can do here is we can move the white point and we can move the grey point again. So if we move the grey point, we will see more details. You'll notice everything over all is too dark. It's okay. So what we want to really do is keep the details in the white areas and not make the black so black. So what I'll do is I'm going to use my quick selection and just select the light white areas that are missing detail in this photo. So let's just select any blown out areas, probably their faces too. Here we go. So as I'm using this quick selection, it's in add mode. So that means that as I select more areas, it adds it to the selection. If I'm in a different mode, I can subtract any areas. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So now I want to have the level adjustments only adjusting the white area. I don't want to adjust the black areas or the darker areas of the photo. So what I'm going to do now is make sure my layer mask only applies to these selected areas. So I'm going to invert my selection. So now the opposite sections are selected and press delete. Okay. So as you can see over here in the layer mask, you can see it's mostly black with just some white parts. Now I can zoom in and use my paintbrush tool on white to add or remove parts to the selection. So anywhere it looks a bit funny, I'm just painting. So we get a bit more detail in there. Now, a lot of times these black and white images, you might have downloaded them from somewhere like ancestry.com or whatever, and they're very low resolution. So this is just one way we can try to make a bit more sense out of it. Now I'm just going to switch over to using the black brush. The white brush, sorry, to add parts to this selection. Just going to select. Here we go. There we go. So this was a bit more of an advanced edit from the last one. But you can see we've got a bit more detail happening there in the faces it's overall a bit dark, perhaps. So I'm just playing around with the layers until I'm happy with how things look. And again, I'm going to merge all the visible layers, Control-Shift-E, and then do another levels adjustment. If you know me, you probably know that I'm quite a fan of levels here. There we go. So it's not perfect. I'm not as happy with this one. But when you're working with a small image, you do the best you can. So here's before and after. There's a little bit more detail there in the faces. So we've got our next photo that we're going to work on is this one. Now, in the email that Deb, it's a photo of her parents in their Packer. The faces look terrible. The car has spots all over. The brother is driving and he can't see him. And there's a big house and a garage and people that I wanted to remove. So that is quite a bit. So let's work on that. File, save as. Photoshop document. All right, so she said that she wanted to remove pretty much the entire background, which, sure, we can do that. I don't know myself if I'd choose to do that because I'd kind of like to know where this parade was, but for your purposes, if you want to use it for something specific, why not? Let's give it a go. So the first thing I'll probably do is work on the dust. So let's go to Filter, Noise, Dust and Scratches. So here we're quite zoomed in and we'll just change the radius so that the dust disappears. We're just going to play around with this threshold until we get something that is getting rid of the dust but not too much detail. There we go. So let's click OK. And that runs through and it gets rid of some of the dust. Now that is one good way to do dust. In this case, because we're removing the background, I think I'm going to remove the dust manually. So we just go to Image, Edit, Revert, and there's all our dust back again. And I think it might be easy enough to... No, I think I'm wrong. Let's jump back to that filter and do dust and scratches again. There we go. They're mostly gone. So I was wrong. I greatly underestimated how much dust there was. So I'm just going to use the spot healing tool to just get rid of any last spots. So I'm just going through here, and anytime I see a big lump of dust, I'll just quickly draw over it with this healing tool. Great. Now that's looking a lot better. Problem number one is fixed. So I'm going to duplicate that layer. Now, if we zoom in here, we can see a shadowy figure. Let's see if we can bring him out. Make a new layer from selection, Command J. Then we're just going to do my favorite, which is the levels adjustment, to see if we can actually pick up any detail. I somehow don't think we will. It just doesn't look like there's any information in the photo more than a jacket. You just really can't see it. So I don't think that's going to be possible to make your brother showing. Sorry, Deborah. Let's have a look at the parents here. Now their faces have been blurred out a bit from that dust and scratch removal. So let's go back to the original photo. and pull that in. So if we zoom in here, we'll notice that before we did the dust and scratch removal, there was a bit more detail in their faces. So let us create a selection there to a layer mask. So now the rest of the photo is gone. So we'll go to our edited one and we'll just pull in that layer. Duplicate layer. There we go. So now you can see there. There's the parent. So again, we're going to just select the mask with our black brush. We're going to brush out any areas that we don't worry about. So we're just wanting to concentrate on the face. So we're going to get rid of all that area. Do our healing brush on these spots. A lot of your old vintage photos will end up with spots of dust on them when you get them scanned, or if you pull them out of a frame, they might have water damage. So we're just using a healing brush tool to get rid of the dust in the parent's hair here. We'll zoom in a bit more. We're doing the best we can. So you can see that the photo itself is pretty blurry. So we can't add detail that doesn't exist, but at least we've got a bit more detail than we did have. Now we're going to merge all the visible layers and get to work on that background. So let's select the whole background with the parade goers, the garage here, the people, I'm guessing the tree is okay. Again, if I was a professional retoucher, if I was doing this as a professional retouch job, I would probably have you sitting right beside me. The trees are okay. All right, we'll leave the trees in so that you can see what I'm doing. So we're going to assume that we want that house gone. And we're going to see what Photoshop Elements can do for me if I try to delete the house and all those people. The problem is in this particular case is we don't really have much to go on. So what I'd probably do if this was me, edit, fill, selection, use content aware fill. And I'll just wait for Photoshop Elements to give its best guess of what it's going to put in there. Yeah, see, it's not going to work. It took the photo of the ground and the car up here and tried to replace the trees with that. So not our best option. I think what would be good, or what would look better, is if we had another photo of trees and we could put that in there. In this case, because it's such a huge edit, what I'd probably do is just select the car and the road. And I mean, we're really, we can't invent parts of a photo that aren't really there. Well, at least not with this today's technology. But we'll do our best. The smart selection, and in fact let's show you the refined selection because that'll help here. The refined selection tool is something that's been added in Photoshop Elements 14, and it just makes it a lot easier to do these more refined and precise selections. So here I'm letting Photoshop do the heavy lifting for me. If I have the icon with a plus in it, that means it's going to add that area to the selection. If I have this grey with a dot in the middle, that means it's going to look for the edges itself. And if I have the minus icon, that means it's going to remove from the selection. So if I start from an area that's selected and kind of scribble over, it adds that to the selection. So it's just doing some really clever stuff behind the scenes here, which should hopefully save me a bit of time. So you can see the red haze. That is just telling me that the area that's red won't be in my selection. And you can actually see the grain of the film stripes through here. And then we can always go back to the quick selection or the selection brush. Oh, Deborah says, I think this was taken with an old Polaroid camera. Well, it's doing well for its age then. All right, so now we've selected the car with great difficulty. Takes a little while. Nope, that's not what we wanted. Go back to our selection. We can create a layer mask. There we go. Now we'll duplicate this layer to a new layer. And then let's go over to Photoshop Elements here. And we'll just do a quick search for trees so I can show you this. In Photoshop Elements 14, they added a new style of searching. So, what? No trees? That's strange. Let's try bush. Nope, that's not really what we want. Let's try forest. Ah, that's better. So, have we got any forest with a road? And we'll go back to the grid view. I'm just going to open a couple of options. I just did the new search button up in the top right here. Automatic tagging that you can search, so it's pretty handy. So I haven't tagged any of these pages. Let's just see. So one option would be to then get your photo and then pull on a new background. So here's some Australian bush, which probably wouldn't be your ideal choice. But there we go. So now we can probably just do a bit of healing brush to get rid of that golfer in the background. But there we go. We've got a new beautiful background on that photo. So let's save as. Yeah, but like I said, you probably don't want an Australian bush background. But that's the kind of thing we're looking at. So let's compare where we started and finished. This one took us a little bit more time. Original, finished. And we could even do a little bit of a levels adjustment here to try and get it looking a little bit less gloomy. Although, as you can see, this background photo is from an overcast day, so I think it kind of looks pretty pretty much as if it would match. So instead of being in a crowded parade, they're now in a country golf course. I could try this background with it. Let's have a go. This image is very low resolution, as you can see, but this is kind of more trees. There you go. I don't think this looks quite as good because, as you can see, like, it's much closer up, but gives you another option if you don't want to go with a modern photo. I mean, it might even look better if I did something like this. But it's all fun that you can play with. With the car selection, I didn't invert the selection at all here. I just selected it. So I just made a selection of the car, and then I created a mask. So when you have a selection and then you make a layer mask, it automatically only shows up that specific layer. So let me demonstrate. We have a picture of the car here. Oh, actually, let's just do it with a square box. So we've got a square box around the face of the people here. And when we make a new layer mask, it will cancel out everything except the faces. So in this case, what I did was I selected the car, created a new layer mask, which you can see here. So the white area was our selection. Then when I duplicate that layer, I can make a new document and it will only show up the car. Of course, if I delete the layer mask or hide it, you can see the rest of the photo there. So we make a selection of our car. Quickly, using our auto selection here. Here's our selection of our car. Now, we're wanting just to see the car. We don't want to see anything else. So we do layer panel, add layer mask. And then everything that wasn't part of our selection is gone. It's still there. It's just not showing because of the mask. If we just left it as a selection, we could totally do that as well. We can press Control or Command J to create a new layer. And again, that's only the selection there. Now let's jump over to Photoshop Elements Organizer, where we had a question about searching. In Photoshop Elements Organizer 14 and newer, there's a new function called Smart Tags. So we can just browse Smart Tags to find all the photos of bride, or what it thinks is a bride. So like dresses are coming in here, things that are mostly white. But it does pick up quite a few brides. Or my favourite one to show, kangaroo, because I've got a few photos of kangaroos. I didn't tag a single kangaroo ever. That's just come up. And let's see dogs. So here we are. We've got all our Christmas tree photos. So as you can see, the smart tags are really, really handy. And combined with the automatic location and face tagging, super. I've even got yoga here. That's hilarious. It's automatically tagged some of my photos with yoga. Let's see those ones. Oh, that's hilarious. But handy because now I can select the ones that are actually dance, because most of them are dancing. And then I can add my own tag. We can't remove the auto tags, but we can add our own tags. So if I click on Grid View, and then I can add dance. Okay, so Carmel's asking another question. So with the photos, once I've edited them, if I save the file, it will save it like that. So then when you email, you will be able to send through. However, I've saved them all as Photoshop documents so I can go ahead and edit them later. If you want to email it to someone or get it printed, all you need to do is File, Save As, then JPEG, and then I usually rename it to Edited. Save it as the largest file I can. So drag that slider right up to the right, do OK. And then that's the best quality that you can get from that photo. So you should always save your original photo just in case anything happens in the future or there's new technology that might do a better job than our current editing. But there's no harm in saving a second Photoshop document and JPEG. Now a JPEG file is the one that you'll need to print, upload or email for other people to view. So I hope that answers your question, Carmel. Thanks, Deborah. I'm glad it was inspiring to you. So thank you to everyone who's attended today. So if you're interested to learn more about editing your photos, definitely check out Photo Editing for Absolute Beginners, which I'll link you up to, and also Mother's Little Helper is a really great class to get you started, especially I focus a little bit on editing vintage photos in that one. So thank you so much everyone who's been saying that it's been a helpful webinar. I hope you've enjoyed seeing some vintage photo restorations and some modern day photo restoration and a little bit of a look at Photoshop Elements. I'm going to end the webinar here. Say thank you so much, and don't forget to head to Digital Scrapbooking HQ Community on Facebook, where we now have a great place to chat and talk about editing our photos in Photoshop Elements. Thanks so much.